Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about a very highly requested question. And that question is, what if something goes wrong during my spiritual working? What if I'm working with a deity, doing a spell, doing any kind of spiritual work, communicating with an energetic being, and someone or something that I don't want shows up and starts to wreak havoc? What do I do if something goes wrong? What do I do if an entity that I did not invite joins the ritual? So I'm going to be answering these questions in this video. So I've been wanting to make this video for a while, knowing that so many of you want to see it. But also on top of that, this actually just happened to me this past week. I had a situation where I was connecting with spirit, connecting with divinity, to receive messages and guidance, and something or someone, or actually to be more specific, a group of energetic beings that I did not invite, that were of a more chaotic nature, invited themselves to this ritual space, and I had to deal with it. So when that happened to me last week, I knew, let's sit down and make this video, because it just happened to me. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys everything you need to know in terms of what to do if something goes wrong during a ritual, during deity work, during communicating with a spirit, any of that. If something goes wrong, what do you do? So first, this is actually a very rare occurrence. This is something that does not happen often. I think because of media and because of misinformation, there's a lot of fear around spiritual work, around deity work, around spirit communication. So people often think that it's scary, or that it's intense, or that it's dangerous, which, not to say that it can't be those things. It totally can. Depending on the circumstance, it can be dangerous, it can be a little bit frightening. But in your average everyday spiritual work, whether you're working with deities, communicating with spirits, doing mediumship work, doing your normal rituals and spells, it is very, very rare that you will get a disrespectful entity, or a being with chaotic energy, or just someone you didn't invite that's wanting to wreak havoc. It's very rare for those beings to just intrude upon your spiritual work. If you are calling on a specific being, then that call should be going directly to that being, and it won't be heard by other spirits that aren't invited. And also, because you're inviting a deity, you're inviting an energetic being, they will do their best to make sure that no one comes along with them, nobody hitchhikes, to get to your ritual space. So it is very rare that this will happen. So I want to make sure that that's clear before we get into the rest of the video, because I don't want to spread this misinformation of fear when it comes to working with deity and working with spirits. You don't have anything to be afraid of. Not to say that there won't be times where a being you didn't invite shows up, or a being who has an unfriendly energy shows up. That has happened to me, and it could happen to you, but it's not likely. And if you want to know more about protecting yourself, being proactive and making sure that you remain safe before ritual, during ritual, I do have a video all about protecting yourself and protecting your home, so check out that video. I'll have it linked down below. So let's talk about how to know if an energetic being that you have not invited has invaded the ritual space. So how do we tell that someone who wasn't invited is here? How do we tell that the energy has shifted? How do we tell that there is a being of darker energy, a being of chaotic energy in our space with us that we did not invite? How do we tell? The first sign that someone or something that you did not invite and do not want in your space has invaded that space is that you feel the energy change. Especially with deity work, but even with spirit work, any kind of ritual or spell where you're working with energies, you will feel the energy shift. And it will be sudden, and it will not be subtle, at least not in my experience. And if you are a spiritual worker, you'll get better and better at noticing subtle changes in their energy field around you. And as you practice, you'll get better and better. And if you are a naturally psychically inclined person, then this will come very naturally to you. If you're an empath or an HSP, a highly sensitive person, then you'll have no trouble sensing the energies around you. You just do it naturally. I'm an empath and an HSP. I'm also an experienced spiritual worker. I've been studying for years and working for years. So I've gotten really good at this. So you might have a natural inclination to it, but you also might need to foster that ability and grow that skill. So that's our first sign that someone or something that we did not invite is present with us. The energy will change. So if you're working with a specific deity, you'll know the way their energy feels. You know when you call on them, they feel strong, they feel powerful. You'll know that when you call on them, they feel very homey and loving and comforting. You know how they feel. So if that changes all of a sudden, take pause and check to make sure that the deity is still there with you and that no one else has arrived that wasn't invited. So pay attention to that energy change. If it felt one way and then suddenly it feels a different way, it could be that something's going on. Another sign of this is that your candle goes out, or all your candles go out, or your candles are behaving erratically. Like they're flickering a lot, or they're moving all around and there's no air current. If there's a breeze and your candle moves a lot, obviously that's normal. It's because of the breeze. But if there is no air change, there's no wind coming through, your AC didn't kick on, you don't have a fan on, and your candle's going like this, going like this, going like this, or just goes out, that's not always a sign that an uninvited being is present, but it could be a sign if you have the other signs along with it. It can be a sign that someone that you don't want there is present, simply because if you're working with this positive light energy, maybe you're doing a spell, you're doing a ritual, you're spending time with a deity, you're giving offering, and then all of a sudden you go from this light, airy feeling, this positive feeling, to your candle goes out, your candle's being erratic, and you suddenly feel this sense of dread. You suddenly feel this uneasiness. You don't feel as light and motivated and airy and focused as you did previously. So this is one sign. If your candle goes out or your candle's being erratic, it's not 100% that it's because of an energetic being entering your space without permission. It can also mean a deity communicating with you through the candle flame. It could also be because you yourself lost focus. But sometimes candles do behave this way because of an unwanted entity entering the space. This next way that you can tell that an unwanted being has entered your space goes along with our first reason, and that's that you feel the presence of another being, and their presence is unknown to you. You've never felt this presence before, or you're not used to the feeling of this presence, or you can tell immediately it's different than the feeling of the presence of your deity, the presence of the spirit you're communicating with, the presence of the guide you're communicating with, the angel you're communicating with. You can tell that there's another being and they feel different than what you were working with intentionally. So this is another sign that someone has intruded upon your space. This next reason gets a little bit more into spirit communication and mediumship, which I haven't talked about a lot on my channel, but is one of my favorite things to study and work with, so we will be making more videos about that. But this next way to tell that an unwanted being has entered your space is that they'll make their presence known, either through taps, so you're hearing taps, knocks in your house, it sounds like someone knocking on the wall or knocking on the door, creaks and snapping sounds that your house doesn't normally make. If you live in an older house and you're hearing creaking and snapping and things, it could just be the normal behavior of your house. But if you're hearing like repeated knock, 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 or repeated crack, 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 and it's not normal for your house and there's no storm going on, you know that it's not someone walking around the house, then that could be a spirit making their presence known. In addition to taps, you could be having strange things happening with your electricity or your electronics. Lights flickering or going out. Blowing a fuse is a really good sign. Maybe your phone spontaneously like restarts or shuts off. If you're playing music, maybe your music skips or turns off completely. Things like that, weird electricity things. Also, along with this is they could make their presence known through divination. So if you're doing divination with a deity, with a spirit guide, with an angel, or just doing divination yourself, and suddenly you're getting these messages that are confusing and weird and don't feel like they're connected to you, you could be getting messages that are mean and rude and dark and chaotic all of a sudden that feel like they're not coming from you. That's another sign that a being has entered your space without permission, a chaotic being. Because sometimes, beings of light enter your space without permission, but generally they're more gentle when they enter. Often you don't even know that they've arrived and entered your space. They're respectful while they're there, and if they do make their presence known, they make their presence known in a positive way. They'll send you a nice message or a reassuring nudge, a sign that you take as a positive thing. But with a being of chaotic energy, of darker energy, you're going to be seeing messages that are more so fear-based. So these messages will be about death, about losing things, about sorrow, about despair, about giving up, about being hopeless. So if you're doing divination and suddenly you're getting messages that are really, really dark and don't feel like they're resonating with you, that's another sign that this could be happening. So now let's talk about preventing this from happening. How do we prevent malevolent spirits, angry spirits, chaotic beings, dark beings? How do we prevent those energetic beings from entering our space without our permission when we're doing spiritual work? The first way to prevent this is to make sure that you have a strong intention going into the ritual, no matter what it is that you're doing. You better have a set intention, you better be ready to execute it, and you need to know going in how you're going to execute it, how long you're going to be doing it for. Just have a strong intention and have a plan. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to completely plan everything out if you're more of a spontaneous person. Just know exactly what your intention is going in. That strong intention will help to focus your energies and keep beings that you don't want invited from even seeing what you're doing. Because you're so focused, your energy is going in a very specific direction, and that is where it will go, and it will not sway any other way. The next way to prevent this from happening is to take protection precautions beforehand. So do things to protect yourself before you even begin your spiritual working. And again, you can watch my video on protection to get more information about this. But basically, using salt, placing salt on your altar, or doing a circle of salt if you don't have pets, because pets will lick the salt up, and salt is really bad for animals. They cannot eat a bunch of salt. So keep that in mind. Quartz crystals can be great for protection if you want to place them in a circle around you. If you're someone who is a witch and is Wiccan, you can cast a circle to protect yourself. If you want to know more about casting a circle, I also have a video on that I will link down below. But basically, when you cast a circle, you are putting up a circle of protection. You are saying only light energy, only beings of light and order can enter this circle. Also using other crystals that warrant protection. So look up what crystals offer protection, and see if you have any, and wear those on you or place them on your altar. Also, making sure that you regularly cleanse. Make sure you cleanse your space so that there isn't any stagnant energy that would invite beings of chaos or beings of darker energies. Chaos calls chaos, so if you've got a lot of stagnant energy or heavy energy, say you've been feeling really bad and you've been kind of depressed, or something really horrible happened in your home, or just the normal everyday stuff of stress from work, stress from your family, stress from your inner struggles, it's good to cleanse regularly. So make sure that you're cleansing your space to make sure that your vibration of your space is as high as possible. And again, you can get even more in depth with protection things. Watch my video on protection, but you can even do things to protect your altar, protect your home. Another thing you can do to prevent this from happening to you is to make sure that you are working with a protection deity, a deity that is very strong and able to protect you on an energetic level. That deity can move through the realms and move through the non-physical aspect of our world in a way that we as human beings cannot. So having a deity in your corner that's all about protection can really help to make sure your rituals are always the way you want them to be. This is also great for if you are a dark worker. I myself identify as a light worker and a dark worker because I do work with more chaotic beings and chaotic spirits. And I do work a lot with the shadow and death. So I work with all areas of life and all areas of light and shadow. So if you do dark work, shadow work, chaotic work, it's extra great to have a protection deity in those circumstances, because when you do go into the dark, go into the shadow, go into the chaos, you have that deity with you to guide you even through that darkness. So think about incorporating a protection deity into your spiritual practice. I actually have several protection deities, and some of them protect me from certain things, while others protect me just in general. So research some deities or beings that are all about protection and start to work with them and charge them with protecting you in all your spiritual work and see how that goes for you. I think it is very beneficial to have a energetic being in your corner that can help to make sure your rituals go as planned and aren't interfered with by beings who weren't invited. The next thing is, to prevent this from happening, you need to deal with any fear that you have. Going into a spiritual working, especially if you're going to be working with an energetic being, fear does not serve us. Fear is not helpful. Fear has a purpose, but in something like a ritual, there's no point in having any fear. Again, there's a lot of misinformation and fear surrounding deity work, spirit work, communicating with energy beings, but there's really not anything to be afraid of. Fear is a very strong energy. So when we enter a ritual space or start to do a spell, a ritual, a magical working, invoke something or evoke something, that fear becomes amplified just because we're raising our energy, we're raising our vibration to be able to do this magical working or do this spirit work. So if you have fear going into whatever your spiritual work is that in that particular moment, that fear will become amplified. You might not feel like you're getting more scared, but the energy you're sending out is fear-based. So that can lower the vibration of your energy and can impact who and what interacts with your energy and what you call on. Without even meaning to, if you have a lot of fear going into a ritual and you call on a specific being, without even meaning to, you can accidentally send that call to some chaotic beings, darker beings, and they can invite themselves into your space without you really meaning to, simply because they sensed your fear and they're feeding on it. Fear is something that energetic beings can really feed off of. So deal with any fear you have beforehand. Help yourself to feel prepared and ready. Make sure you have protections in place beforehand. Do your research so you feel like you know what you're doing and you're ready to deal with anything, and go into it with open arms and not afraid. So now, let's talk about if this happens. If this happens to you, what do you do? In the moment, it's happening. Someone you don't want in your ritual space is there with you, whether they're an energetic being of unknown origin that you don't know, a darker spirit, and a chaotic energetic being has entered your space. What do you do? So, the first step is do not panic. Try your hardest not to panic. I know in the moment it will feel very overwhelming, and you'll have this feeling of, oh God, like, something out of my control has happened and what do I do? And you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to disrespect any of the beings you work with, and you want to deal with it as quickly as possible. But in that moment, try not to panic. When you realize this is happening to you, try to remain calm. The next step, which is the most important step, and that is, don't just get up and leave. Don't just quit and give up and move on. Don't get scared and just walk away. You have to finish what you're doing. It's very important that you finish what you're doing. If you are in the middle of a ritual or in the middle of communicating with a deity and you realize that someone you did not invite is present, You cannot just blow out all your candles, turn everything off, and leave. No, 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 no. Not good, not good, not good. And we can't do this for a couple reasons. First, it's disrespectful to any beings that you were working with to just close everything and leave. That leaves them feeling confused and feeling disrespected and feeling rejected. So we don't want to do that to them. We want them to know that we respect them and we're grateful to them and we're honored that they came and that they're in our presence and that they answered our call. So we want to be respectful. So the other reason is that if we panic in the moment and just blow out all our candles, put everything away, turn everything off and leave, then we are inviting whatever or whoever that chaotic being or darker energy spirit is, we are inviting them to stay. So we don't want that. We didn't invite them to come in the first place. So we don't want to invite them to stay. So if this happens to you, do not just freak out, turn everything off, shut everything off, blow out all your candles, close everything, and leave. That's a big no-no. It's happening. We've got to deal with it. We can't just ignore it, reject it, pretend it didn't happen, and move on. That will invite the spirit to stay. So we've got to finish what we started. That means, say you've called on an energetic being, you're doing your thing, you realize that someone you didn't invite is present also. You realize, okay, I'm staying calm. Priestess Dandelion told me to stay calm. I need to finish what I started. So, even if you're working on a spell or a ritual or some kind of magical working, we're not going to do that right now because it's not a safe space. Someone we didn't invite is present. So we are going to inform the deity of that, even though they probably already know. We're going to say, thank you so much for coming. Someone else came and they're not supposed to be here. So I release you now. Thank you for being here. You may go. So you're going to release them in whatever way that you release your energetic beings that you work with in your practice. From there, if you cast a circle, you're going to close your circle. If you opened up any other energy channels, you're going to close those also. Close everything that you opened. If you invoked anything, release it. Make sure that you release anything that you invited to be there, and make sure you close anything that you opened. And then the next step, which goes along with the previous step, is to stop what you're doing. Plans have changed. We can't do the magical working we were planning on doing right now because it's not a safe space anymore. Someone has intruded upon our magical space. So like I said, you're going to tell anyone that you expressly invited to respectfully go because it's not safe for you to be here right now, and you will call them again when you're ready to try again. So you'll respectfully release them, and then you will, on the flip side, once you've respectfully released any deities or beings that you invited, you're going to very firmly, not rudely or disrespectfully, but very firmly and seriously tell whoever or whatever has entered your space without permission to leave. People think that you have to do something fancy and crazy, but really, if you out loud say, you are not welcome here, leave this place, I did not invite you, go, or however you want to say it, they will get the message and they will leave. Energetic beings can only stay if they're invited to stay. And sometimes things get invited to stay accidentally because people don't know that they're inviting something to stay. But if you expressly say, I do not want you here, I do not accept that you are here, this is my space, and I did not invite you, leave the space now, they will leave. They cannot stay in a place that they are not welcome or wanted. So this is when you will expressly say, go. And along with this, I want to say, if you're like me and you do chaotic work and you work with darker beings, chaotic energies, you might feel tempted to try to communicate with this darker being, this chaotic being that has invited itself into your space. It might be tempting to release your deities, release any angels or energetic beings, spirit guides you were working with, and then when you're left with just that darker being who invited themselves, it can be tempting to try to communicate with them. Don't. don't. Just don't. Just don't. It's important that if we are going to do dark work, if we are going to work with malevolent spirits or darker energies or what most people would refer to as demons, it's very important to do that in a space that is dedicated to that, where your intention is to do that. When someone or something infringes upon our space and invites themselves, we don't acknowledge that, we don't condone that, we don't want other energetic beings to think that's okay. Because then we're basically like ringing the energetic doorbell, like, come and bother me, I talk to everyone who bothers me. So even if you want to maybe in the future communicate with that dark being or communicate with a chaotic being, this is not the time. This being invaded your space against your will. This being is not being respectful. This being was not invited. So this being needs to go. So do not communicate with them. Do not ask them their name. Do not ask them to identify themselves. Simply tell them to go. Again, if in the future you want to call on that being, you can try to call on that being and try to communicate with them and get more information about why they invaded your space and who or what they are. But again, you need to do it in a separate space where your intention is to do that. This spell and ritual or spiritual time that spiritual working has already been invaded upon. So it's not a safe space. It's not a good time to work with energies. You need to close it and move on. So we're telling the being to leave. We're not asking them for their name. We're not asking them for information. We're not asking them why they're here. We're telling them to leave, and that's it. So don't even bother. You don't need to know. And if you want to know in the future, like I said, you can do that. But when that's appropriate. Right now is not the time. We don't want energetic beings thinking that it's okay to invade our space because we'll just communicate with them anyway and we won't be bothered. It's fine. No, we have boundaries. We are doing healthy spiritual work with healthy boundaries. So you need to go. I'm not talking to you. If you want to come back when I invite you, I welcome you to do so. So the next step, you've respectfully released any energetic beings that you meant to communicate with, and you firmly and sternly told the uninvited being to go. You've closed your circle if you opened one. You've closed any channels you've opened. If you're in the Akashic Records, you've closed the Akashic Records. If you've journeyed, you've come back to this plane. So you've released and closed everything, and you've told the spirit that you didn't invite to leave. Next, you are going to vigorously cleanse your space. So in whatever way you cleanse. I personally, when something like this happens, like to do a lot of clapping. And that's what I start with. I find that clapping very much so opens up the energy and releases it and breaks it up. In my experience, when chaotic beings or darker energies invite themselves to my space without my permission, I find that the energy feels very tight. It feels very stuck. It feels almost like moving through molasses. So you're going to want to break that up. So basically what I do is just all around until it feels broken up, broken up, broken up. Then I will open all the windows that I can. I will make sure I have a good airflow coming in and out of the house, get that fresh air flowing. I will do some smoke cleansing. I personally love to burn cedar. I love to burn lavender and rosemary. So if smoke cleansing is in your practice, then you can do that. You can also cleanse with a broom, do some sweeping, make sure all that energy is out, get rid of that stuff you don't need anymore. You can even, if it was bad enough and you felt uncomfortable enough, you can even cleanse and clean your whole altar. Water itself is very cleansing, especially if you have moon water, water that's been charged under the full moon or even the dark moon. You can use that to cleanse your space. You can flick it around, or even wipe down surfaces with it. So however you cleanse your space, you're going to want to cleanse everything that was in proximity to what occurred. That means yourself too. Cleanse yourself, cleanse your body. It can be good to get in the shower Give yourself a smoke cleansing. You may even want to put on, if you weren't wearing them already, some crystals of protection, some crystals that are grounding and healing. The other thing I like to do is ground myself. So this is very important after any spiritual working, but especially when something goes wrong and you feel very up here, you feel very like, oh God, how did that happen? Why did that happen? I hated that. That didn't feel good. That felt really gross. Oh God, I'm scared now. Like, you're having all these feelings that are very up here. You're feeling very scattered. So it's very good to ground yourself after something like this happens. If you can, stand in the grass. Even better, lay in the grass. If you need to, cry. When we're working with energies like this, especially if you're, like I said, an empath, an HSP, or just very attuned to your psychic abilities, it's really alarming. And of course you're gonna feel that fear. You're gonna feel that in the moment. Oh God, what's happening? And it's up to you in that moment to solve the problem and do the right thing and do all these steps that I'm telling you. So that's very stressful and can feel very alarming and like a lot. So once you're done, if you feel like you need a good cry, have a good cry. If you feel like you need to do a couple screams, do a couple screams. So just get that energy out. Release that energy that being gave to you with its presence when you didn't invite it to. Release that. That's not yours. You didn't call on it. You didn't invite it. Get it out. Go clean something, do a chore, something very mundane that grounds you. And then the last step that I say is more so optional. It's just something that you can do if it resonates with you. It's something that very strongly resonates with me that I started doing when I first started my practice. And that's to immediately inundate the space that it occurred with positive light energy. And you can do this in any way that feels correct to you. So if you are very much so into music, very much so into dance, you can turn music on and dance around the space. Happy music, dance around, have a fun time, jump around, spin around, just be crazy, have fun. Or you can play music. If you are someone who has the ability to play an instrument, you can play that instrument and sing along and have a fun time. Positive energy cannot be fed on the same way negative energy can. Like I said before, negative or chaotic calls more negative and chaotic. So if you had this experience, immediately, once you've done all the things I said before, give that space a little bit of love. Do some art, do whatever gives you a lot of joy, and do it in the space that this negative thing happened. That will help to bring the vibration of the space back up and bring the vibration of you back up and help you to continue to feel safe in the space that you're in, because you had an intruder. That's really jarring. So remember that this space is yours by doing something that you love in it. And then we talked about this before, make sure that you wash yourself energetically and physically. So, smoke cleanse yourself, wear some crystals that are cleansing and protecting and grounding, take a shower, take a bath, do whatever you need to do to cleanse yourself in every way. So that is all the information I have for you guys on what to do if this happens to you. I hope that this doesn't happen to you. Again, it is very rare, but if you are someone who works with beings a lot or does just a lot of spiritual work, then it's bound to happen to you at some point on some degree. It might not even be a big scary thing. It might just be, a little chaotic being that comes in and causes a little bit of chaos, and it's not too scary and you deal with it and you do what you need to do. Or it could be a little bit of a scarier event where you're sure that something or someone has entered your space that you do not want and it feels really different and you have to deal with it and move on. So hopefully this doesn't happen to you, but if it does, I hope that this helps you feel like you're in control and you can deal with it. I want to assure you that you can deal with these things. You can do what you need to do to protect yourself, cleanse yourself, protect your space, and know that if you do work with deities, if you do work with spirit guides or any kind of energetic beings, they are there for you. They want to protect you. They don't want anyone invading your space without your permission and making you feel uncomfortable. So they will help you, and they will help to protect you. Even non-protection deities, they don't want hitchhikers coming with them to rituals. They don't want this uninvited spirit mooching off of their followers' energy. So know that they're there for you. You're not alone when that happens. If a deity is with you and that happens, where a being you didn't invite is causing chaos and disrupting the ritual, they know it's happening and they'll understand when you respectfully release them, and they might even send you something in return to help you feel calm and protected and loved. They might send you a sign or an omen in some kind of way to help you remember that they're there for you. It could be that the next time you call on them, they're extra loving and extra caring and extra homey to you. So know that they're there for you. And know that I'm here for you too. If something happens, feel free to reach out. Leave any questions or comments down below. I really, really hope that this helped. This is something that I studied for a while and had to figure out on my own a lot. Being a dark worker and a light worker, I get a lot of different energetic beings coming through all the time, and I have to assess, are they safe? Are they not? So I'm happy to share this information with you all, and I hope that it helps you feel in control and in your power and like you can handle anything that comes at you. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram so you can stay up to date on everything that I'm doing. Love and light to each and every one of you. Blessed be.